Hey everybody, this is Greg Bell from A Captain for the Stars. I will be showing you my amps, guitars, and pedal board today. I will go over the signal chain, why it's in that order, why my board is so crazy, as well as what I strum, how it's set up, and a few other things that make me sound like what I sound like. It won't have any guitar playing or effects being played for this video. This is just a description of what goes on and why I do what I do. The next few videos will go over each section of my board, respectively, being drives, delay, modulation, things like that. But this is basically just what I use and why I use it and why I use so much of what I use. Okay, let's start with the guitars. First, I have a Squier Vintage Modified 72 Tele Custom. This is my favorite style of Telecaster setup. This one was refinished in a true oil that I did myself. Changed out the bridge pickup and sanded down the neck. I like the neck. I like wood necks. I don't really like the glossy necks. It's not really my thing. And I use 11s on this one, and they are half wounds. That helps a little bit. I have really dry hands, so it helps with the finger squeak. It's one of my favorite guitars to play. I use couch straps. This one is a mid to late 90s Fender Telecaster Custom 72, same style. It's created in Japan, a CIJ that I picked up for a really good price. The Bigsby is on there with a Vibramate. The guy who I got it from obviously doesn't know how to drill straight holes, so it's a necessity. If you can see the big white pickup in the middle, that is a Seymour Duncan. It's a strap pickup that I put in the middle position with a blend knob. This is probably my favorite guitar to play. It's got a great feel, and yeah, I like the look of it and the sound of it as well. It's a little bit darker than its sister or cousin, half-sister, step-sister, I don't know. But I got a lot of great tones out of it, and it's got a great feel to it. This is a newer addition to the family. This is a 1994 MIJ Fender Jaguar. It's stock, and I have it set up with 12s, flat wounds. Heavier gauge on Jaguar is the way to go, and I just like the way this guitar sounds and feels. It sounds really bright. It's different sounding than my Teles, which is to be expected. And I think a mistake a lot of people make is to try to get one guitar to sound like every other guitar. And while there are guitars that are very versatile, I think sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and have a stable of guitars as opposed to just one that you think will do everything. And this is my Gretsch Electromatic. It's a 5120. I sanded down the finish a little bit to be not so glossy. I also modded the wiring harness with Sprague orange drops and did a few mods on the tone controls. This is my go-to slide guitar, and you know, that's the purpose of it, is mainly for slide and lead stuff. It's not as bright. It's not nearly as bright as any of my other guitars, but the way I have my board set up, I have it set up to compensate for the difference in tone. So those are my main four guitars. Maybe in a later video I'll show you some of the other ones that I occasionally use, but these are the ones that that are my favorites for right now, and I've been really happy with the choices on these. Moving on to amps. I run in stereo, and I don't think I'll ever go back to mono, just because I've traveled to the dark side. So this is a single rectifier, Rectiverb 50. 6L6s, and I grew up listening to a lot of 90s rock, a lot of Incubus, and I just really dig the tone that Mike Exner gets out of his stuff, so you can definitely say he's a huge influence. I don't really use a gain channel all that much, just because I'm wired in stereo, but I do use it from time to time when I'm messing around or learning different riffs. So it's set to just be for the edge of breakup. I like clean amps, and I like to be able to manipulate my dirt with pedals, because when I started playing guitar, I used bass amps and a pod, and I didn't know any better, and it's just kind of stuck with me. It's part of who I am and what makes me me. And this is the least guitarist piece of gear that I own. It is a Hartkey bass amp. I've used this in many other bands. My old band, The Human Condition, when I played guitar for them, this has been my go-to amp. I've had it since I was 18, 19, and I'll never get rid of it, partly because it's not worth anything to anybody else, but it's a huge part of my sound. I keep going back to it no matter how hard I try to stay away from it, just because I'm used to a lower end and a little bit thicker response than most guitar amps will give me. So this is the other side of my stereo setup. My cables, I use lava cables, retro coily cables. I like the look of coily cables, and it's just one of my things. You know, you got to look good while you're playing too. Okay, let's go to little accessories before we get into the board. Picks. I use a lot of different type of picks, depending on what I feel like during that time. But a lot of times I use a V pick. This is a medium P. I keep them in a little baggie, and I use a whole lot of different picks. They're super thick, and I will say they will make you a better player. They're hard to use at first because they are so thick and they are so bright, but over time they will definitely help with your picking technique, and they will help you tighten up your picking style. Just kind of show you how thick they are. I mean, they're really rather thick. They're difficult but fun. I suggest you try them out if you're looking for a different tone, and you won't be disappointed. Another pick I picked up are the Jim Dunlop Prime tones. These are 1.0, and I don't know what's so special about them, but I really dig the tones that I get out of them. They're a little expensive, but trust me, you won't be disappointed. And I also use the tried and true Jazz 3s from Dunlop and a few other Clayton picks. They round out my pick repertoire. This is my box of goodies. It's a cigar box that I made to hold my picks. I use the Boneyard ceramic slide. I also use a Moonshine ceramic slide, a little bit shorter. I mainly use these with my Gretsch because they sound good, and they're really warm sounding. I also have a few glass slides that are hand blown. I forget the name of the company off the top of my head, but they're great. Different thicknesses and different lengths. I have a really thick chrome one from Jim Dunlop. Another smaller glass slide. Everybody's got to have a bottleneck slide. I don't ever use this one because I don't like it, but I can't get rid of it because I am a gear hoarder. And a few brass ones. Brass are my least favorite ones. I use them on acoustic, but if I had to go and choose a go-to slide, these see right here based on what I want to sound like. EBO I've been using it a lot more in the writing process. It's a great tool to have. It's something that you can't just use the first time you try it. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. Okay, that's that. Now we'll go to my signal chain and the effects. So here's my board. It is a Pedal Train Pro. There's a lot of junk on it, as you can see, but it's taken me about 2 years of trading, swapping, trying, and figuring out what I like and don't like to reach this board. It's about done. A few more wiring things that I have to do, but I'm really pleased with the tones that I get out of these particular pedals. So we'll start at the beginning. An SP comp from Exotic. I've used a few different compressors, and I really like the SP comp. I like any comp with a blend knob, but this one saves a lot of real estate. It's a great sounding comp, and you can get a lot of different sounds out of it. I have it set for the low setting. Don't remember the dip switches, but just play around with what you like and go from there. I use the comp to even out playing for quieter parts, but I also use it, you can almost double your reverb preset. If you've got a really crazy reverb and you want to tone it down, the compressor will also do that. And for song endings, you can kick it off and you'll get that full bloom back from your reverb. So that's a little thing that I use it for. Not a lot of people realize that, but yeah, you can do that. Use it to rein in some of your crazier delays or your reverbs. Up next is a little black box. This is a true bypass with a blend made by Dan over at This One's Mine. Makes great high quality products. I suggest you check them out. This is next in line, and I run the Digitech Whammy 4 through that. Now the reason I use it is twofold. I have the Whammy 4 is not true bypass, so I wanted it to not always be in my signal if I'm not using it. But also with the blend knob, you can mix in how much whammy you want in your signal. And I do that. If you know the Whammy 4, you know it's really glitchy. But because I blend it in and I don't have to overload the input of the Whammy 4, I can pretty much force it to not glitch and kind of sit back beneath my plane. Yeah, that's how I use the Whammy 4. That's a little tip I tried. Okay, up next is, let's see, the Hoof Fuzz by Earthquaker Devices. I've tried a few different fuzzes, and this is my favorite one. The tone and the versatility you get out of this is insane. You will not be disappointed if you try it. Yeah, it's my favorite fuzz, and that's next in line. There's not much to say about it other than it's thick when you want it to be. It really cuts through, and you can have a lot of fun with it. Okay, after that, I have my trio of overdrives from Walrus Audio Effects. Next is the Mayflower. This is the Black Friday edition paint scheme. It looks really cool. I use it, as you can see, this is the drive. It's a little bit dimed, not so much dimed, but it's a little bit higher than most people use a gain on overdrives, and that's because it's my main drive sound. Yeah, I really like the Mayflower. It's got a great tone. It works well with all my guitars, and it's really versatile. Then we go over to the Walrus Audio Voyager. I have a little bit of gain dialed in on this one, and the volume not so much, only because I'm playing in my apartment and I have neighbors. That varies. And the tone, I have it all the way to the right, and that is because I use it mainly when I use my two darker guitars, which are my White Telly and my Gretsch. And so that compensates for the darkness a little bit, as well as yeah, it'll boost my Mayflower, and it also boosts the next pedal, gives it more drive. The Iron Horse, which is also from Walrus Audio. It's my favorite distortion pedal. It goes from overdrive to distortion tones, has a three-way toggle. This thing is loud, and this thing also, when distortion is cranked, can get you into some fuzz territory. Great pedal. And those three, in any combination, I can get pretty much whatever tones I want. The Voyager's before it, so when I want a little bit of a heavier drive than what it's set at, it kicks in, and it does a great job of doing that. It also keeps its clarity when doing chords, which is a bonus. Okay, after that, I have another great pedal by Walrus Audio, the Janus, which is their trim fuzz. It's a different fuzz from the Hoof. The Hoof, if you know your fuzzes, it's a Green Russian style fuzz, modeled after Dan from the Black Keys' personal fuzz. But the Janus is more of a fuzz face style fuzz, and I almost always use it with the Gretsch for slide. It's a combo that I love. It's a combo that has worked well for me. I don't really have the fuzz super dimed. It's just more for sustain, but you can get a lot of clarity out of it, and it sounds really great. I also use the trim a little bit, not a whole lot, but there are certain songs that call for trim, and due to the nature of the pedal, it is before other modulations. A lot of people like it after, but it works well for me that way. And it's kind of what has to happen with this pedal. When you get 2-in-1 pedals, you're kind of stuck with the placement. But it's a great pedal. I really like it. And yeah, I mean, it's another part of my sound. So that's the gain part of my board. Then it goes to the volume pedal. Ernie Ball VP Junior. It's modded by me, and it has a toggle switch. I don't know if you can see it right here, and I call it the death mod. If I break a string, I can flip the switch, and these LEDs right here go from green, which is go, to red, and you're dead. So I can have full control of the volume, and like I said, if a string breaks, I can take it completely out of the signal chain and mess with it later. So that's what I do with that. Okay, next is the Blackout Effectors Whetstone Phaser. Like I mentioned before, I really like Incubus, and he uses phaser. So it's just a tone that I've grown to love and use on my board. This is probably one of the best phasers on the market. You can see all the switches and knobs and toggles and stuff. I use it as a phaser, but I also use it, you can get super slow phase tones, and you can also, there's a setting called Fix, and you can choose where in the frequency range with the LFO you want it to stay. I use that in combination with the Gretsch and with my solo tone, and what that does is it gives me a little bit of a mid boost to cut through, and when I'm layering delays and stuff like that, if I want to play over it, it'll give me that cut through tone that I'm looking for. So there's another tip. If you're looking to further develop your sound or to cut through in a mix. Phasers aren't just for that whooshy phase goodness. So you can try that if you like. Yeah. Then I have the Warp Vinyl from Chase Bliss Audio. Joel has been great working with me on this one. It's an older one, and it wasn't set up with a MIDI, so he sent me a MIDI controller. Programmer got it up and working the right way. It's an analog vibrato chorus. If you don't know about it, basically it's an analog signal path, but it has digital controls, so that opens up the possibilities. They're pretty much endless. The underside of this has a ton of dip switches, and it's just a really great sounding pedal. It's a little bit pricey, but it's definitely worth it if you are into vibrato chorus. And with the right settings, you can also throw it on a delay and give yourself kind of a fake RE20 Space Echo tape delay kind of sound. And it's the Warp Vinyl. I mean, if you've ever listened to a vinyl, it gives you that old scratchy, wobbly sound. When paired with a delay, it's a really fun toy. Next is the Afterneath, also from Earthquaker Devices. I won this in a giveaway. Jam Pro here in Reno, Nevada. They put on a bass clinic that was put on in conjunction with Earthquaker, and I was fortunate enough to win that. This is the newest pedal on my board, and it kicked off the Ghost Echo, also by Earthquaker. This thing is fun. A lot of great tones, and it's inspired me to write some new riffs, which I'll show you in a later video. I run it before my delays because I mainly use the Timeline's looper as my main looper, and I just wanted to have a reverb before the delay, so when I record stuff I can have reverb on some different lead lines. It's a different setup, but once again it works for me and I like it. Okay, let's see here. Going on to my delay section. So after all that, actually let me show you underneath my board. So underneath, I have another pedal from, this one's mine. It's a 2-channel true bypass looper. It is right after the volume pedal, and it's my demo slots. So I can put 2 pedals in, try them out in the modulation section without tearing apart my board. I stole the idea from Ed O'Brien from Radiohead and the guys over at Gig Rig. They did it for his board, and I figured, hey, that's a great idea, I'll steal it. I use 3 power supplies. I'm not sure if you can see with the video. I use 2 Voodoo Lab pedal Power 2 Pluses and a digital to power everything. I also have a This One's Mine buffer, which is run after my fuzzes. I didn't want to mess up the signal. Oh, let me go back. I have this little box right here It's an AB box made over. It's made by Aaron Wall at AWall Pedals. It basically lets me have two inputs for my guitar, and I can switch them over and have two guitars into my board at once without switching over and unplugging stuff. And yeah, I have another pedal of his on my board, which I'll show you when I get to the delays. So first, everything's mono up until the Strymon Brigadier. I think I'm pronouncing that right. If not, oh well. This is one of my favorite delay pedals. Actually, all the delay pedals on my board are my favorite delay pedals. I have a memory lane too, which I'll get to in a second. But that pedal is limited in delay time, and the Brigadier picks up where the memory lane 2 leaves off. So it goes mono into the Brigadier, and it splits out stereo left and right. This pedal is, if you're looking for just a great copy of a analog delay, look no further. You can get as clean or as analog as you want with this pedal, and it's got really long delay times, really great features. And yeah, from there it goes into the Strymon El Capistan and the Diamond Memory Lane 2 left and right respectively. So you may be wondering why I have 3 delays on my board. Actually I have 4. I have the timeline. So you're asking why I have 4 delays on my board. Okay, I like to layer delays, and I also like to make a lot of noise. If you have all of your delays in series, you will run into mud. They will affect each other, and they will have the delay in front will have an effect on the delay after that, and so on and so forth. So I use the Brig first as a analog delay sound to both amps. When it splits off, I can have it off, and then I can have the El Capistan, which is panned to the left, and the Diamond Memory Lane, which is panned to the right. And I can play, not only can I play 2 different delay types and make them work, but I found that having a delay on one amp and clean on the other amp will give you a little bit better note articulation. And it's just something that I've tried, something that I like. It might not be for everybody, but yeah, it works for me. Big knobs, I like to tweak things with my foot, and so I do that. I have this dual favorite switch from Aaron over at AWall Pedals. Yeah, and I mainly use it right now to switch between a preset on the El Capistan, which is a normal delay, and then I kick it over and I can go into the sound on sound mode. And that's another great part of the El Capistan, is you can make a loop, and if you mess with these knobs, you can either get it, like with the repeats all the way up, it'll keep looping, but you can also turn into this great warm wash tone if you mess with the tape age and the wild flutter, and I'll show you that in a later video as well. The other side of the signal is the Diamond Memory Lane 2. This is my favorite actual analog delay pedal, and I have gone through just about every analog delay pedal there is. Tap tempo, 2 different delays, quarter notes, dotted eighth notes. It's my favorite sounding analog delay pedal. I'm pretty picky when it comes to noise, and this pedal is not noisy at all. The oscillations are beautiful. They're not really clicky. They don't have a lot of clock noise. And so after burning through maybe 7 to 10 different analog delay pedals, I've settled on this one. After that, it goes back into stereo into the timeline, which is run to both amps. I use the Disaster Area DMC Generation 2, the 4, with the expression knob to control the timeline, the Big Sky, and the Warp Vinyl. Their new software has presets, which is amazing. I use the looper a lot on the timeline when I am just noodling at home, and then soon to be for live use. So I highly recommend picking up a Disaster Area controller if you're using the Strymon timeline or the Big Sky. It really opens up the timeline. As crazy as it sounds, the timeline has a lot of different stuff on it, but with a Disaster Area controller, it turns the timeline into the sweetest the sweetest DL4 style delay. A lot of people like the DL4 from Line 6 because of the looper functions, and it basically gives you the looper reverse, half speed. You can either stop or you can restart the loop, as well as all the power of the timeline. I'll go over some settings on that at a later video, but it goes stereo from there into the Big Sky. A lot of people have a gripe about having so many presets. They wonder why you need so much stuff. And I say, why not? Why not have a pedal that will let you do anything that's in your head? From shimmer to reverse to spring to room to all these different parameter choices. You might as well have everything at your fingertips instead of limiting yourself and say, man, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. That's the beauty of the timeline and the Big Sky. You can do pretty much whatever's in your head. And go stereo from there into my modded RV5, modded by me. I put the time knob right here so I can tweak it with my foot. And this knob right here, this is a full wet mod. When the pedal's on, it'll go to full wet. When the pedal's off and it's on, it's a mute switch. So I thought that was interesting. It was a mod I found on the internet and did that, and I love it. I usually use the plate setting on the RV5. I haven't gotten away from it, even though the Big Sky has it. I just use different reverbs for different things. So yeah, I have 3 reverbs and 4 delays on my board. The TU tuner is in with the modulation. I've had this pedal the longest. I got it when I was in my early 20s, before I went on tour. It's the first pedal I ever bought brand new, and I will probably stick with it till it no longer allows me to tune. All my wiring is George L's, and except for the MIDI cables, because they don't do MIDI cable. And yeah, I run out left and right to the recto verb and the bass amp. So that's a little bit of the rundown of my board. The next video will be my gain stage. The video after that will be delay and modulation, and then after that I'll throw everything together and show you how this overkill of pedals will definitely give me what I want, and maybe it'll inspire you to try different things. But yeah, that's my board. Those are my guitars. And sorry for being long-winded, but I hope you enjoy. I'll see you later.